Hello everyone and welcome to Grandstand Sports Data. In today's video, we will be continuing our 13 chapter series on the art of sports betting. We will be educating you on what we call the 13 pillars for turning you from a square to a sharp with similar principles to the book of the art of war. We will be providing action steps through each of the chapters so you can improve your betting approach and get you betting more responsibly. We will also add our final thoughts from the 17 years of experience that we have betting on sports. So let's get right into it. Chapter 2, Bankroll Management. Captured soldiers should be kindly treated and kept so that they can join your army. Now, you might be wondering, what does that quote have to do with sports betting? Well, think about it. In war, a general doesn't waste his soldiers recklessly. He protects them, he builds their strength, and then he uses them strategically to win the long game. In sports betting, your bankroll is your army. If you don't protect it, you won't survive long enough to capitalize on the good bets. So, what are some of the harsh realities of bankroll management? Well, without discipline, even a winning bettor can go broke. Let me give you a short example. Imagine you're hitting 55% of your bets, which is profitable over the long haul. But instead of betting responsibly, you double your wager after every win because, you're feeling hot. Then a cold streak hits and suddenly you're wiped out. So you had the skill, you even had the edge, but because you had no discipline, it didn't even matter. And here's a serious question you need to ask yourself. If you lost it all today, would it drastically change your life? If the answer is yes, you're probably betting too much on sports. Because at the end of the day, sports betting should be an investment, not a reckless gamble. You're building an army, not sending them to die in battle for no reason. So in this video, we're going to break down how to properly manage your bankroll so you can bet with confidence, survive the inevitable losing streaks, and then set yourself up for the long-term success. So let's get right into it. So before you place a single bet, you need to establish your war chest, your bankroll. Now, what is a bankroll? Simply put, your bankroll is the total amount of money you are willing to risk on sports betting. Not your rent money, not your grocery money, not your emergency fund. It's money you've set aside exclusively for betting. And if it's gone, it doesn't affect your daily life. So here are some of the key rules to setting up your bankroll. First, obviously, will be only bet what you can afford to lose. So if losing your bankroll would stress you out or impact your lifestyle, you're betting too much. Bet responsibly. Second bullet is going to be you need to keep betting funds separate from personal finances. One way to do this is using a high yield savings account. Now, why, will you ask? What is it about the high yield savings? Well, sports books don't pay you interest. They literally sit there, your money doesn't grow, but a high yield savings account does. Instead of letting funds sit in a sports book, earn interest on them while you wait to put them into the right sports books. Your bankroll is still accessible, but you're going to be maximizing your return even before placing one bet. Now, bankroll size. This is usually determined by your bet set size and strategy. So look at it like this. Say if you're starting with $1,000 bankroll, your bet size and how much you bet per game will be different from someone who bets $10,000 with a $10,000 bankroll. We're going to get into how to structure bets in the next section, so stay tuned for that. Next, some of the common starting bankrolls is usually $1,000 for, your typical beginners. Some start smaller, some go larger. But the key is what? Choosing an amount you're comfortable in losing. And with that said, the first action step is going to be you need to decide on a bankroll amount that you are 100% comfortable in losing. I want you to take that amount and then deposit it into a high yield savings account of your choice. Now, what this is going to do, it's not just about having the money to bet, it's about managing it wisely. You're setting yourself up for the long-term success, not just that short-term gambling. Okay, so for those who don't know what bet sizing is, all it is how much you're betting per game, or I guess I could also call it per event. I like to start off with a quote. A commander must know when to advance with full force and when to retreat strategically. Sports betting is no different from that. If you're betting random amounts, you're setting yourself up for disaster. That's where the unit system comes in. The unit system is going to help you bet with discipline. Instead of betting based on feel or even chasing those losses, every bet should be a set percentage of your bankroll. Some people have a different definition of a unit. Some people like in my instance, I will say my 1 unit play is really a 3% of my bankroll play. You may see another guy who's more of a volume better. He may say my 1 unit play is my 1% of my bankroll. So people have different definitions of their 1 unit. Now, when we just turn it over to percentage betting, I'm using right here a $1,000 bankroll. If you were to bet 1% of your bankroll on every play, that would be $10 you bet in a single game or event. If you were 3%, that would jump up to $30, and so on and so forth. We're going to go deeper into bet sizing in chapter 9, so make sure to subscribe to Grandstand's Sports Data to be the first to check out that video when it comes out. Okay, so continuing with bet sizing, we're going to move on to bet sizing according to your style. Remember, we touched on this in chapter 1 when we developed our plan and what type of a style bettor you are. Are you volume or are you a sniper bettor? Well, in the case of being a volume bettor, this is when you bet a high number of games. So the recommended unit size is obviously going to be lower, and we're going to recommend 1% of your total bankroll. Also, when it comes to your high yield savings account, we're going to want more money to be in the sports books rather than in the savings account because more money is going to be in circulation because of being a high volume bettor. Now, you have to remember that more bets equal higher variance. That means there's longer swings up and longer swings down. Now, let's check out sniper bettors. They only bet when multiple factors align. They really want to get, into the nitty-gritty when it comes to their edges. The recommended unit size for them will be about 3% of their total bankroll. This means that they can keep more of their bankroll in the high yield savings account to earn interest between bets since they don't bet high volume. But you got to remember that fewer bets requires more patience and more discipline. The action step that we would recommend here is choose your bet size based on your betting style. Now, I understand that if you're new here or you're new to the sports betting world, you may not know what style you are yet, or you might even be a hybrid. But we will say that just in case, if you know that you're a volume bettor, 1% per bet of your bankroll, or if you're a sniper, you would move to 3%. So no matter what style you use, the key is going to be consistency. Don't bet random amounts based on confidence. Stick to your system. Next, we're going to talk about how to protect your bankroll from those unnecessary risks. Speaking of those mistakes and risk, in sports betting, knowing when not to bet is just as important as knowing when to bet. The biggest enemy of your bankroll isn't the sports book, it's going to be you. I've been around long enough to see talented bettors go broke not because they lack knowledge, but because they lack discipline. And then these are going to be the biggest bankroll killers that separate winning bettors from the ones who just another deposit away from giving it all up. First off, obviously, this could probably be mentioned in almost every chapter: chasing losses. Let's get it out of the way. Chasing losses is the fastest way to destroy your bankroll. You lose a bet, you get mad, you fire off another bet to win it back. That bet loses. You bet bigger, now you're in full panic mode. Next thing you know, you're betting on Korean baseball at 3 o'clock in the morning just to get even. So if you recognize this, congratulations. You've done exactly what the sports books want. They don't make money off good bets. They make money off emotional decisions. I've seen people wipe out weeks of smart, disciplined betting because they couldn't handle a bad day. Losing is going to be part of this game. Stick to the process. A golden rule for this would be if a bet wasn't good before you lost, it's not going to be good after you lost. Now, moving on to number 2, we'll be overbetting. And I'm not necessarily talking about the money. I'm talking about overbetting is about betting without an edge. I see this mistake all the time. Bettors think, well, I have 15 games to choose from. I should have at least 5 bets today. No. You should only bet when you have an edge. You gotta think quality over quantity. That's even if you're a volume bettor. A sharp bettor might only make 2 to 3 bets a week if that's where the value is. Others who have a strong data driven model might bet 10 plus games a night. It's all about your edge. Number three, betting too big. Now, this is going to be the fastest way to wipe out even the best bettors. The basic rule here is never risk more than 5% of your bankroll on a single bet. And then never have more than 15% of your bankroll tied up at one time. So this means if you're a sniper bettor, your unit size is usually 3% of your bankroll, which means you'll typically have 5 plays in circulation at the max. Now, if you're a volume bettor, you're betting 1% per play, meaning you can have up to 15 plays active at one time. Here's where people screw up though. They say, well, I only have one bet tonight, so I guess I'll put 15% of my bankroll on it. No, that's reckless. Remember, if you only have one bet in play, it's still just one bet. Stick to the 5% rule max. Long-term bettors win by staying in the game, not by making desperation plays. Number four is going to be poor record keeping, and this is last but certainly not least. If you're not tracking your bets, you're just guessing. I don't care if you think you're winning. What do your numbers say? And also, what should you track? The answer is everything. We're going to go deeper into record keeping in chapter 10, but just know this. If you're not tracking, you're not improving. You're not stagnant, you're falling behind. The action step here is going to be set a rule. Never bet more than 5% of your bankroll on a single play. And when we say play, we're talking about betting an event or a game. And never have more than 15% of your bankroll in play at one time. If you can avoid these bankroll killers, you'll already be ahead of the 90% of bettors out there. Most people place bets, win or lose, and then they move on. The smart ones, they take time to assess, adjust, and then improve. That's why assessment days are non negotiable. These are your checkpoints, the days where you step back and evaluate your betting performance, bankroll, and your overall strategy. If you're not doing regular assessments, you're going to be betting blind. So, when should you have these assessment days? Well, the timing is going to depend on your sport, but the key here is going to be consistency. We want guys who may be daily bettors, like you're betting on NBA, maybe Major League Baseball, or even the NHL, where these games are daily. Well, you're going to assess weekly or even bi weekly. The volume of bets means short term variance is going to be high, so weekly reviews help catch leaks early. One bit of advice would be look for dead spots in the schedule when there's only about 1 or 2 games on the slate for that night. That's a perfect day for an assessment day. Well, what about those games that play maybe once a week and there's a crap load of games on the schedule, like the NFL or even college football? Well, you're going to want to assess them every Tuesday. All the week's games have been played, and there are no games being played on that day, which makes it perfect. The bottom line here, though, is to pick a schedule and stick to it. Now, for those assessment days, what do you even focus on is going to be the question. Well, first is going to be record keeping. What's been winning? What's been losing? Tracking variables that you don't even bet on will help you as well. Assessment days aren't just about what you bet on, they're about what you didn't bet on. If a stat, trend, or even market movement that you have been record keeping keeps winning, but you're not betting it, why not? So, going through this process is going to help you evolve your strategy. A new trend keeps proving profitable. You're going to test it, you're going to refine it, and then hopefully you'll insert it into your plan. Now, the next thing that we're going to evaluate on assessment days is going to be bankroll. Should you adjust your unit sizes? Did your bankroll go up or down since your last assessment? Well, if it went up, you're going to want to recalculate your unit size to match your new total bankroll so that you're betting proportionally. Same thing if it decreased, which means you're going to scale back a little bit on how much you bet on each game. Now, finally, you're going to look at the plan. Take what has been winning from your record keeping and your new bankroll calculations to update your plan or even implement a new one. Did you see any trends in totals, even though you're a money line bettor? Did you spot a fundamental factor that has been crushing the sports book for your specific sport? And now you want to implement it into your plan. The possibilities are endless here, but without having regular assessment days, you will be missing out on huge opportunities that you might not see. Now, what's going to be the action steps here? You're going to want to schedule assessment days based on your sport. Track every variable, whether it's winning or losing, so that you can improve. You're going to want to recalculate that bankroll and adjust unit sizes if needed. And then finally, you're going to want to use all this data that we just talked about to refine your betting plan. Never stop evolving. At the end of the day, winning bettors aren't just the ones who pick winners, they're the ones who assess, adjust, and stay ahead of the market. Okay, so let's go over the key takeaways before we get into our final thoughts. You've now got the fundamentals of bankroll management, but let's be real here, people. None of this matters if you don't apply it. So here's going to be your action plan. These are the exact steps that you need to bet smart and stay in the game for the long haul. The first step is obviously going to be to decide on a bankroll amount. This is going to be money you're 100% comfortable with losing. It's not your rent, it's not your grocery money, and it's not going to be your emergency fund. You have to be 100% comfortable with losing this amount. Next, you're going to want to choose your bet size based on your style. If you're more of a volume bettor, you're going to stick to that 1%. That way you can make more volume plays. Where if you're a sniper bettor, you're going to want to pick your spots. So maybe stick to about 3% of your bankroll. We're going to cover much more on this topic in Chapter 9, like we spoke about. Make sure to subscribe to Grandstand Sports Data so you can be the first to check out that video about bet staking. Next is going to be practice the 5% and 15% rule. Never put more than 5% of your bankroll on one bet, and then never have more than 15% of your bankroll tied up at one time. These rules are going to help keep you alive through the cold streaks, but then help you capitalize when you're hot as well. And then finally, we want you to schedule an assessment day. Whether it's weekly, bi weekly, or monthly, it's going to depend on your sport. Find some weak spots in the schedule, and this is when you're going to review your records, review your bankroll, and then review your betting plan, and then adjust. So, whether you're winning or losing, if you have good bankroll management, you can always keep betting. This is going to be the difference between the pros and the amateurs right here. It's not whether you can pick winners or not. It's going to be about bankroll management. The pros can survive those cold streaks and capitalize on the good runs, where amateurs go broke chasing losses or even betting too high. So if you're new here to Grandstand Sports Data, make sure to check out all of our bankroll management videos we already have on our channel. We will also provide a link to each of those videos in the description down below. When it comes to sports betting, most people focus on the picks, the stats, the trends. But if your bankroll management isn't solid, none of that matters. So let's talk about reality for just a second. Look, me, Anthony from Grandstand Sports Data, I'm a financial advisor by day. And none of this is financial advice. It's only for educational purposes only. But if you're dipping into your needs money to bet on sports, you're making a huge mistake. Are you in debt? Then you should not be betting on sports. Are you unemployed? You should not be betting on sports. Are you financially unstable? That's right, you guessed it. You should not be betting on sports. Sports betting is for the financially sound. So if you're not, you need to get your house in order before you try to build a bankroll. With that said, your bankroll can grow even without winning bets for those who are taking this serious. You're going to want to deposit money into a high yield savings account. So if you're a volume bettor, you'll need to keep more in the sports books since you have more bets in circulation. That doesn't mean that you don't keep money still in that high yield savings account. If you're a sniper, just like we've been talking about throughout this whole video, you're going to keep more in the savings because you're betting on fewer games. And guess what? That money is going to be growing passively whether you win bets or you lose bets. Now, the real sharp bettors, They don't just manage bets, they manage their money. And this is why this chapter is huge and it's so important. For your personal finances, you should establish a savings plan to consistently grow your high yield savings account, which is essentially your bankroll. When I got serious about sports betting, I started with a deposit of about $200 into my high yield savings account at the time, which was maybe 10 years ago. Uh, we started betting 17 years ago, but I didn't start taking it more serious and getting into the weeds and educating myself till about 10 years ago. And I deposited 200 into a high yield savings. Then I took only 100 out and spread it to 5 different sports books. Over those past 10 years, with only modest wins, we didn't kill the sports books by any means. We did accumulate that compound interest, and then we had a disciplined saving strategy. That initial investment has grown to $10,000, and that's our bankroll today. Most of this was not from winning or crushing the sports books, like I said, but from taking about 2 to 5% of my personal savings and dumping it into this high yield savings account. That is what has helped me grow my bankroll, not necessarily winning. Now, some people may have questions that we didn't touch on multi-sports bankrolls and what will be the best approach. So if you're betting on multiple sports, you're going to need to decide on one or two things. Do you want one huge bankroll? And this is more flexible. It's going to be easier to manage, and it's going to let you move money between sports. Or even you don't even have to do that, really. You just have to have one big bankroll and bet a certain percentage of your plays on any sport anytime. Or you can do a separate bankroll for every sport. This usually keeps things a little bit more disciplined. It's more time consuming. It makes it a little bit easier to track, but it's going to be less flexible, and then it's going to be slower to grow as well. The best approach that I think, if you're asking for my opinion, I think just having one big bankroll. You have that one bankroll, you track each sport separately in your record keeping. This way you get the best of both worlds. You get the flexibility and you get the discipline. But here's one rule that's non-negotiable when we were talking about assessment days. You're never, and I mean never, going to alter your bet size on non-assessment days. So if you're making any changes in the middle of a losing streak or because you're feeling it in a winning streak, you're already losing. You want to know the biggest difference between a winning bettor and a losing bettor in my 17 years? It's not who knows the most stats. It's not who can pick the most winners. It's who manages their money better. Because you're not going to win every bet. Hell, you're not even going to win every week. But if you have a system and a strategy and also that discipline, you'll still be standing when the dust settles. And that's the goal. So take care of your bankroll, protect that army we spoke about, stick to the plan, and remember to make the bankroll last. I want you guys to like this video if you've ever learned the hard way about bankroll management. Drop a comment down below with your biggest bankroll mistake, because we've all made them, right? And don't forget to subscribe to Grandstand Sports Data so you can be the first to see more of this content. That's it for this one. Stay smart, bet responsibly, and I'll see you in Chapter 3, Finding Your Edge.